Hello, my name is Holly Amato, and I have Kayla Ajini, a business owner here in Southeast Michigan for a decade in the financial service arena, with me today on the Onward and Upward show. Kayla is a licensed financial professional in 25 states. And today we're doing a deep dive on how to create a wealth profile, including a retirement plan at any stage of life. Thank you so much for joining me today, Kayla.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Holly.
Absolutely. And before we get started on our topic today, I just wanted to say thank you again for hosting the Leading Ladies event. It brought so many female entrepreneurs and business owners together. It was such a fun day. I loved it.
I know we had a blast last week. It was great. Fun Galentine's.
It was. Galentine's, exactly. What a perfect idea. I haven't gotten to do that lately, so that was very cool.
I know. I felt like it was a fun way to bring us all.
It was. Everyone had a great time. And you are such a party planner. I mean, it was like every detail was done so exquisitely and beautifully, and everyone felt special.
I actually, it's funny, in college, I really considered going into hospitality management because I love bringing people together. So, it's fun to have like an outlet for that that's a little bit creative.
You crushed it. You absolutely crushed it.
Very
Okay.
fun.
So today's topic, it's really near and dear to my heart because I'm one of those people who had life circumstances that took me in a direction way outside of my plan. And I needed to get back on track after my divorce. So setting up a retirement plan did not happen in my younger years. And I realized I needed to get myself set up properly so that my kids would not have to have shared custody of me in my later years. Right? Insanity. And so I'm looking forward to talking today about how anyone listening can really reach out, start that process to ensuring that they're financially sound and they can enjoy life after retirement and not have to stress.
Yeah, that's so good. And honestly, Holly, I think like a lot of people, regardless of life circumstances, I mean, even your average American who gets, goes to college, gets married, has kids, maybe stays married to that sweetheart for 40 years. It's an important topic for all of us because most of us are undereducated. The school systems don't teach about this. So unfortunately, right, we're learning kind of from assimilation of parents' values, and some of us maybe read books, but the greater majority of people really are not taught about money management and building wealth. So I'm really excited to dive into this topic today, for sure.
You couldn't have said that more perfectly. We don't teach that in schools. I was a fifth grade teacher years and years ago. And we don't teach that. We don't teach kids how to even save their money very well and to stay out of debt and all the things. So the fact is, so many people get to a stage in life and start to really realize, oh my gosh, how am I going to live out these days? And what if I don't have great health and I have to retire sooner, or so many things. And I think, to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that you have to have just a ton of money to get started in this arena.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I do feel like that is a barrier that should be communicated about more often. Like, really, it does depend, honestly, who you work with. Okay. Some advisors do require minimum net worths. Like, they'll say, hey, if you don't have $100,000, like, we don't have a solution for you. And so I think traditionally, even 20 years ago, that was fairly common. Wealth management really was for kind of the upper echelon, or, the upper middle class. It wasn't really something available to kind of those of us who maybe are middle class, right? And the good news is that is changing overall, but definitely I think you can start. There's a lot of basic knowledge that would benefit a person tremendously. So you can start where you are. There is hope for you to go from where you are really to where you want to be. It's funny how I got into this industry. Just to give a little background, I never would have considered working like in the financial industry. I hate math, transparently, still to this day. And really kind of my journey started when I went away to college. I went away to a private school in Minnesota for my first year of college. And we were required, Holly, to take this course that we were paying $900 a credit hour. So I'm sitting in a 1 credit course called Get to Know the School. I remember sitting in this classroom thinking, why am I paying $900 to learn about where the cafeteria is? Like, give me a map, you know? But the most profitable thing that could have come out of that did for me, the professor, she shared with us probably 3 or 4 weeks into the classroom experience that they advised students, you don't want to have more debt leaving college than what you would make in your first year on your job. So, for example, if you were going to be paid $35,000, median income for the job that you're going to graduate with a degree in, you shouldn't have more than $35,000 leaving school. And when she shared that with me, I was sitting there, I'm $12,000 in debt, right? In student loan debt, my first semester as an undeclared major. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, I don't even know how much money I'm going to make. Like, I haven't even decided what my career path is. I need to find a different solution. So after that first semester in January, December, when we packed up to go home, I never returned. I actually enrolled in community college. I moved back home to Michigan. And that's kind of where my journey, started understanding money as an adult, truthfully. So yeah. And so here we are today.
And that's so huge because I have 2 kids in college right now and it's a real thing. One of them went her first year and switched, which is totally fine. My son, he's at Macomb and, they're doing free college right now at a community college, which is smart for him. And Bella's over at Oakland. But, when they don't know, this is all the beginning knowledge of training people. Like you said, how does money work?
Yes.
Just small things that you can do to stay out of debt and start building. So my thought is we can start and kind of move back to maybe the quote, perfect situation of somebody who's a young person doing everything right. We can maybe end with that because I know that that's not majority of people.
Sure, for sure.
So someone like me, we have had this conversation. This is a real world thing for me. Someone like me comes to you, 48 years old, and says, Kayla, I need to get started. What would be your process, if you will? Like, what does that look like when you're working with someone new?
Obviously everyone's situation is unique. So Holly, we could have 2 females, same age, same city, both divorced, both with 3 kids, and still the strategy would be completely different. So it is important to kind of, I want to emphasize that in our conversation, what we're going to do some discovery. So I think what it excites me about working with people in their financial planning is that it's like a puzzle that we're solving, right? And it's unique to them. One of the things that we're going to look at first and foremost is kind of taking inventory of their assets and liabilities. So overall, just a high level picture, do you have an emergency fund? Do you have like money saved beyond an emergency fund, in retirement accounts, whether they're current or old? Do you have any funds saved for your kids for college? That's an important conversation for a lot of parents, right? What's your mortgage situation like? Do you own your home? Are you renting? Do you have goals surrounding home ownership? And if you do, what does that look like, timeline wise? So we're going to kind of take inventory. That's our first thing is really discovering where someone is today. And one of the important pieces that we're going to solve for is what we call their financial independence number. So we abbreviate it FIN, but what that means, Holly, that's the exact amount of money that an individual needs in order to retire, never work again, never have to work for pay or income again. And they're going to be able to sustain their lifestyle. So they're going to be able to continue living the way that they live today. Everyone's is unique, but that's the first that's our guiding light, if you will, or our piece of information that we need to kind of help someone progress in creating that plan that's going to take them. It's like a GPS, right? We're putting in where we are, where we want to end up, and that's going to kind of give us the strategy that we need to take you where you want to go. So,
well, that gives me some peace of mind because if we're just throwing darts at a board and hoping, right? Because the other thing I think of, again, being a layperson, and I'm really working to learn as much as I can because I haven't really been in this arena. It's something one of the goals I had for 2025 is really learn. It's like there's so many options out there. you don't know which account should I use. And well, what if I pick something and it doesn't grow? Or what if, God forbid, I lose? Because if you're on that trajectory and you tell me, hey, you need this much money to live your lifestyle. And I'm thinking, okay, so how do we know we're going to get there? Right. So that's the big thing.
Yeah. And I think, with that, just obviously this is kind of overarching general feedback, not making a specific recommendation. But I think it's important for people to understand you are going to lose money sometimes.
Right.
And you're going to make money. The general goal, if you're thinking kind of a graph, right? The general goal is that we start wherever we begin, and at the end, we're ending on a higher note. But from here to there, it's going to have curvatures, right? Because the market's always changing. So I think helping educate someone kind of in your shoes, maybe they have an idea of these concepts, but they don't feel confident necessarily in what direction or steps to take. I think some piece of advice I would give would be, first of all, it's really important to work with a licensed professional.
Right.
Okay. There's a ton of people out there on Instagram throwing out like, buy my coaching session and download my PDF for $9.99. And it's not to minimize those individual skill set, but they're not licensed. They haven't done necessarily what is required on a federal level to ensure that they know what they're talking about and they're protecting, kind of themselves and you, the client. So I think that's really important. First thing I'd say, work with a licensed professional. Second thing I'd say, you definitely want in your strategy to have alignment with what's suitable for your season of life. Sure. So, when we talk about that, like to your point, a 48-year-old mother of 3 that's a single parent is going to have a different suitability from a 25-year-old, newlywed with no kids. Okay.
For sure.
Going to look. So I would say that kind of goes back to working with a licensed professional. They're going to be able to help walk you through that journey of understanding that and aligning with your personal goals, risk tolerance, all of that.
Right. And if I'm hearing, so there's a lot of factors. This is not a one size fits all. That I love that as well, because, that's what you really want to hear, that somebody has got your back, because everyone's situation, you started off talking about 2 different people, same age, same everything on paper, but not going to be the same strategy. Yes. So what would you say? I don't know if you want to go into maybe some, I also had a misconception, like with some of the products available. I didn't think I could get a Roth IRA. And you mentioned to me I could. And I always thought those were just for kids. Like, here's me. I truly didn't know what I didn't know.
So I think, we have to, one of the things that is different, and you and I kind of talked about this off the air, if you will, or off the podcast, but one of the uniquenesses of being a licensed professional is that there are standards in our industry for what we communicate to consumers about. So similar to like a mortgage loan originator, they can't go on and advertise in certain capacities, right? So that's also true in financial services. Really, when it comes to what accounts should people be in or what shouldn't they be in, we're going to keep it super general today. Every single person should have an emergency fund, okay? Every single person. There's not a person that shouldn't have one. Everyone needs one. The size or the amount of kind of putting aside for emergencies, again, that's going to vary based on the individual. A business owner who relies solely on their business profitability for their income, they're going to need more money in an emergency fund than the average individual who works a job that they're paid every other week, a consistent, salary, let's say, of income. Because for one of the people, the business owner, there's a lot more risk. There's a lot more that they're carrying as far as that risk portfolio in their day-to-day life of income generation. Whereas somebody who goes to a job that they've maybe had 10, 15 years, maybe they're tenured, they have a lot less risk of if they're getting paid, right? So everybody needs an emergency fund. We start there generally when it comes to the investment side of things. From there, you're going to look at personal individual retirement options. Okay. If your employer provides you with options, and especially if there's a match in that program. So let's say, Holly, I work for you and you say, okay, for every dollar you put in, I put in a dollar too. Okay. Before we've ever even invested our money in the market, we've doubled it just by that match with the employer. Okay. So that's kind of where we look to next. Like, what programs do employers offer for the people, the clients that we're serving, right? And then from there, you're going to look at private accounts. And there are so many options for private accounts. You've got options, like you mentioned, like Roth IRAs that exist. There's options out there, different annuity-based products. I mean, there's so many things that can be done to generate a really good plan for an individual or family that focuses on meeting, their goals. And then I think after that is when we discuss kids, because to your point, if the parents don't have their life in order, that has a ripple effect that is far more damaging than the child not having college paid for.
Right.
Right. So we've got to go in that order, or else we're kind of doing things out of order. If we do things out of order, it's not a structurally sound plan. Right. So I think those would be probably my tips as far as kind of structure goes.
I love that. Do you mind defining an annuity?
Yeah, so this is a product that would be purchased typically through an insurance company. Okay, and they function a lot of different ways. Generally, they're funded up front. Okay, so in that situation, you would typically have a lump sum. It wouldn't be a monthly contribution, generally speaking. Okay, but again, lots of companies offer different products. So somebody could listen to this podcast and be like, well, I know this annuity company that lets me pay monthly. Okay, not going to dispute that, right? So the products function, each product functions a little bit differently. Generally, annuities, the goal is that they're offering the client some level of protection. Okay, like a risk protection. And so this, you'll see a lot of times advisors will really stress the importance of a product like that as someone does approach maybe retirement age, or even in retirement. It can be a vehicle used for asset protection, income protection, those types of things.
Okay, thank you. Because honestly, there's so many buzzwords and I want to get them straight. I know there's going to be people on that are closer to your level of expertise, but then there's going to be some that are more looking at me going, what is that again?
Yeah.
So when you are putting people into different products, let's say, are you also really watching what's happening? Because let's say you choose mutual funds or something and it looks like a really good fit. Let's say some things look like maybe they're not washing out the way we thought they were. Can you just adjust that? Is that something that you got your hand on?
Well, yeah. So more of a performance related question. So obviously here would be my feedback. You as an advisor, or what you should be looking for, let's say as a consumer, is you want to work with a registered representative, like I said, that's licensed, who is going to meet with you at the level of your comfort. Okay. Now, if you're investing $25 a month and you want them to call you weekly, that's an unrealistic expectation, right? Okay. But within the what is reasonable, okay, if you feel like I'd really like to meet quarterly, that's something you want to find someone who is going to meet with you on a quarterly basis. Generally, when you're looking at how different products or accounts work, okay, I think most clients feel fairly comfortable meeting twice a year. And when you're looking at twice a year, not every year is there going to be a positive return. Unfortunately, that's just the risk of investing in the market. That doesn't mean that the advisor you're working with is doing something wrong. Okay, so just to be clear, if your account doesn't have a positive return one year, that's not okay, I need to fire the advisor. No, that's not realistic. What is realistic is to ask questions, to seek to understand, right? To understand why. And as a consumer who's not licensed, you want to understand, is the market overall having negative performance this year, or is it just my account? Okay. And that's kind of telling as well. I think, again, that's a pretty specific question. I think that it depends on the client's situation overall, what product they're in and kind of how it functions. But some red flags, I guess, as a consumer of when should I be concerned would be if you don't hear back from the person you're working with. Okay, if you call someone, and I would say, give 72 hours. We try and respond within 24 business hours. But if you don't hear back within 72 hours, okay, maybe the person's on vacation, maybe they're sick. But if this is a pattern that you see, you should consider getting a second opinion with your money.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think like generally, if you're losing year over year over year, again, that's not how the market works. So again, that'd be a red flag. I don't know. Does that answer? Is that helpful?
No, yeah, that's very helpful. That's perfect. So if we look at, let's say we've got someone who's jumping on and they're 18 years old and they're like, okay, I've heard hey, if you put this much in the account and by the time you're 65, you'll have $1 million. Like, what would be your advice to somebody who, because I'm going to be, I've been talking to my kids actually about this, and they know more about it than I do, to be honest with you. So they've been looking into some things.
They've been TikToking.
Yes. And I'm like, there is a positive reason for TikTok, right? There's some great information there. But so what would you say to them? I would say if they're looking for, because we're talking about the market and yes, there's volatility, but if they're looking for like that steady Eddie growth, that I want to have this number and I have all these years, what's your recommendation with that person?
That's a great question. So really, we're talking about two financial principles, okay? The first is what we call dollar cost averaging. This is a principle everyone needs to learn. You get more from your money by purchasing in a systematic way monthly than you do by doing a lump sum. Okay, I'm going to give this example. So let's say, Holly, that a pack of, Coke is normally $5 for 12 cans. Okay, it's normally $5. But let's say that there's a Coke shortage, right? We all know this is going on with eggs right now, right? Maybe that was a better example. So there's a shortage. What happens to the price?
It's going to go up.
The price goes up.
Yeah.
Right? So you're getting less for more in that example, right? Maybe now instead of that Coca-Cola being $5 for 12, maybe now it's $7 for 12.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You're going to spend more money to have those 12 cans. Okay. Similarly, let's say Christmas rolls around. What do we see? A lot of, Lay's are the bag of potato chips 2 for $5 or whatever, maybe 3 now. Now, instead of paying 5 each, which would be 15 for 3, you get 3 packages for $12. They're at a discount, right? That's when something goes on sale. Okay. What happens is if you only invest money once a year, okay, on my birthday, I'm going to invest. You might be buying at that moment when things are really high. The demand is up, the cost is up, so you get less. Maybe you got lucky that year, Holly, and you bought when things were being sold on a discount. Okay, but that's pure luck. You can't know that. Whereas if you systematically purchase every single month, you're going to have all 3 scenarios. Sometimes you're going to buy high. Sometimes you're going to buy at a discount. Most of the time you're going to buy at that median price or the normal cost. And over time, that dollar cost averaging, it works in your favor that you end up having more shares of, let's say, the product you're purchasing because of how the dollar cost averaging works. So what I would explain to your kids in that scenario is do it systematically every single month or every single paycheck, whatever that looks like, whatever amount you're going to do. It should be a consistent and continual thing, not a one-time thing. Okay. Does that kind of make sense? Like, because sometimes okay. So then the second concept is it's called the high cost of waiting. Okay. Essentially, there's something out there known as the banker's rule. And it shows us that when we take the number 72 and we divide it by the rate of return that we're getting, it's going to tell us how many years it's going to take our money to double. So, Holly, for example, if we take the number 72, we divide it by 3, we get 24. That means if I put in $1,000, it would take 24 years for my money to double. at a 3% rate of return.
Okay.
So that's the banker's rule. So when we look at that, let's say we're getting a 9% yield, a 9% rate of return. Well, that's 8. Okay. So if I put that same 1,000 in and I'm getting 9% instead of 3, it's going to only take 8 years for my money to double. That's a lot better.
Okay.
Okay. Instead of 24 years, now it's 8. So what happens when people start young, even if they start small, is they've got this time horizon that's working in their favor for periods of doubling. Okay. When we don't do that and we wait till our 30s, our 40s, our 50s, right? What we have to do is compensate by dollar amount because our time frame is condensed.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So
yeah, we've got to make better choices.
Well, I mean, and honestly, I want to like also say there's hope. Like, I can't tell you, especially in the last 24 months, the market, if you follow the market, awesome. If you don't, that's okay. The market has performed really well. And there's obviously a lot of changes that, that can impact that, but we never know for sure what the market's going to do, but there's hope for you regardless of where you're at. And I think that those two rules apply even to you, Holly. Like, it's better to start small and be consistent than it is to wait until you get that big bonus check or you think that thing's coming through, because these principles are true regardless of how old you are,
Right. And you got to start somewhere.
For sure.
Literally have to start somewhere. So I can't wait to rewatch this because I will be taking notes, because obviously I'm not taking notes right now, but in my mind, I'm like, I'm going back and I will be rewatching and I will be taking copious notes of everything you're saying. So, and this has been like beyond enlightening. Just to lighten it up a little bit, because I know I'm working you hard with all of these questions and numbers. What would you say your favorite part of what you do? What do you love about what you do?
That is a great question. I was thinking about that actually today, like preparing for our call. And I remember my very first time getting to look at someone's financial picture, and it was actually my parents, and they did some things like phenomenally well, right? But I just remember like having hopes and desires that there would be capacities of their finances that I could help and make like a true difference or an impact. When I started, it was like over 9 years now that I've been in this industry. And so, you get into that kind of that home stretch with people where they're like, I'm looking to retire. I'm looking to not have to keep doing what I'm doing forever is their hope. And I remember meeting with my mom and dad and being like, yes, there is hope. Like, we're going to create a strategy. There is a plan. Like, we can come up, with something that's going to work for you guys. And today my parents are like truly happy and they are financially thriving. So I think my favorite part of what I get to do is I love offering that level of care to every single client that I sit with. To me, it doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have. I want to take care of you the way that I would take care of my own mom and dad. And I get excited about like the hope that provides people, like they can breathe finally. And so, yeah, that's really rewarding for me.
It's relationships. I think we have that in common. I think to really be a professional and to have longevity and to get the referrals that I know you're getting, it's the relationship. People know when you care about them. They're not just the transaction. So many people are transaction based. Sure. And it's nice when you can work with someone that you feel like everything you just said. I can feel your heart and that you truly do care about people and you want to see them do well. You want to see them make those tweaks and changes and choices that are going to bring them to the end of, that end of their life, but that part of their life where they can just breathe and maybe enjoy it a little bit.
Yeah, their new season, just like
exactly.
They're, and I do believe like, obviously Josh and I are faith-based entrepreneurs. We believe like your latter years are going to be greater. We're going like, that's what we declare over our clients. We believe that to be true. So yeah, that's very exciting. It's powerful to see that actually come to pass for people, for sure.
I love it. And we started off and I mentioned 25 states and we have to hit that. Like, I'm licensed here in Michigan and in Florida, and I think that's a big deal. And really, 25 what made you decide I'm going to do 25 states? And is it just a lot of similarities, the differences? What is
Okay.
that? I got to hear more about this 25 states. It's like
So in
half the
20,
country.
you're so funny. So in 2020, we went from being like 100% in person to 100% remote overnight. Okay. Like our business model entirely shifted. We were no longer working in offices. We were no longer working in person, as many people weren't, right? But we never went back. So most of, if not all of what we do in our traditional business is done through Zoom today. That said, I have an office in Troy and I love to see clients in person that are local, but this has added so much tremendous opportunity to our business because let's say, Holly, that you have a best friend that lives in Tennessee. Okay. In the, 5 years ago, I would have never met with that person because I would have had to fly to Tennessee to meet with them. It just wasn't realistic. So today we've got nearly 100 licensed agents that work out of my husband and I. I have my broker's license, so out of our brokerage. And the majority of those people are not in Michigan. The majority of those people are kind of in satellite locations throughout the country: Texas, Tennessee, Alabama, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, New York, Florida, Georgia. I mean, a lot of different locations. And that allows us to just, be able to service clients there. So in our industry, when you pass a licensing exam, what is kind of cool and unique, we don't have to test in other states. So once you've passed, and you can just apply for an appointment in those states and be appointed there to be able to service clients there. So that's what that looks like for us now, which is really fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. That's fantastic. And yeah, the world has changed so much. Now we have the opportunity. Here we are on a podcast, not in the same location. So it really does open up the level of service and business that you can provide to people. So a lot of people like doing everything from home. I like to get out, but
I agree. I'm an in-person person for sure. What I think people like in this capacity is a lot of people, when it comes to their money, they feel negative emotions. They feel afraid. They feel shame. They feel uncertainty. They lack clarity. And so what I have found is a lot of times people through Zoom, it actually removes a lot of barriers because they're in the comfort of their home where they feel safe and they're having this conversation and they don't have to like dress a certain way or their home look a certain way or feel like they're coming to a fancy office. They get to kind of relax. So that I do feel like that is a benefit in our industry that we've experienced.
Right. So would you say sometimes it sounds like maybe you've got to work with mindset a little bit with people. Some people may come in just ready to go. And I mean, I know I always feel like I have to do some counseling with almost every situation, but I would imagine, money is a big topic and there's probably some barriers and some mindset you have to get through in order for someone to really hear what you're saying. Because again, people have their own ideals. They've heard same thing in real estate. I can imagine everyone thinks they know everything, right? And so you're talking to people who are telling you like, oh, shouldn't I X, Y, and Z? And so I'm imagining that you've got to kind of maybe retrain, break down some mindset issues before you can even really get started so they can even hear you.
For sure. And I would say like almost all of us are, like we kind of talked about at the beginning, our context for finances is typically assimilated values from childhood. So, when you look at, do you overspend? Are you a saver? You probably, whatever the home culture was that you were raised up in, that was kind of the dominant culture, probably what you tend towards, and this is an interesting dynamic when you work with couples, okay, because generally there's somebody who's a spender and somebody who's a saver, right? But I definitely think every person has to go through kind of a retraining of their mind when it comes to their money and understanding there are certain things you don't want to spend money on, but you just need to. There are priorities like life insurance. Everyone needs life insurance. If you're healthy, that's a must. That's like a first basic 101. Just like if you can qualify and afford, you need to be buying health insurance. You need to make sure that, you don't not insure a vehicle or not insure a home. Like some of these things we legislate, but others we don't. And so, like we as a nation, right? Those are kind of priorities. And you'd be surprised how many people don't know that like having $1,000 in a savings account would change their life, right?
Yeah.
And so some of that comes down to, honestly, inflation, cost of living. It really depends, again, what demographic you're kind of working in. A lot of middle-class people, there's tons of statistics you could put in Google or Chat GPT to pull something up, but a lot of middle-class people are spending more money than they're making because that's the cost of like surviving, right? So I think a lot of these concepts, you're teaching people what really is a priority, what isn't. And again, that's different for all of us. So I'm never going to tell someone, no, Holly, you can't go out for coffee. I know that would kill all your joy, right?
Completely annihilate my day.
So that's not a sustainable plan either. Like if that's your little piece of joy, amazing. But that may mean that your spending budget on clothing or entertainment or whatever is different than somebody else who's a peer that makes the same amount of money as you that doesn't buy, a $6 latte every day or whatever.
Right.
So I think some of that comes down to values and helping people understand what they value and then kind of go from there.
And, I think there's something to be said to give that wise counsel to someone. Hey, let's just take a look. I know with the mortgage process, I'm not in mortgage, but they will look at their line items sometimes. Where are you spending your money at if they're trying to help? And people sometimes don't even realize how many times they go out to eat, how many coffees they buy. Maybe you do need to have that conversation. Hey, you know what? My kids call it balling out. We can't ball out right now. This is not our stage of life to be balling out, right? This is our stage of life to be saving, getting that budget, putting away so that we can take that extra vacation. There's something to be said. We don't just wake up and say, well, I deserve a vacation, so I'm just going to throw it on a credit card. Well, maybe we don't. Maybe we don't do that because, and the other thing that the kids say is, that's a future me problem, Mom. That's a future me problem. Well, future me is going to come a lot faster than you think. It came a lot faster than I thought it was going to come. So, knowing, I guess, how to balance that.
There's a really good tool for that, actually. I'm glad that you brought that up. So one thing I would say, if you're listening to this and you're a single individual, okay, assessing your values in general is a really good idea. Like that's a topic for like probably a whole different day, but we could get into your core values, your experiential values. What do you want people to feel like when they're with you? What do you want your life to look like? How do you create boundaries for your life? But if we kind of narrow that down to your financial values, I think, you need to just go on that journey as a individual before you could ever go on that journey in a partnership. So even if you're married, you should be going on that journey on your own. Like, what do I value about money and having money saved and kind of all that. And then I think what that can become for you is taking, the time each month to have a meeting. So if you're single, you sit down and you do a deep dive into where the money went, okay? And where was it supposed to go? This doesn't have to take long. It's 15 minutes. It's your bank statement and 3 Sharpies. And I'm going to tell you how to do that. You choose one color that these are all the things that have to be paid. My mortgage, my utilities, my car note, my whatever. These are non-negotiables, okay? You take another color and you say, these are the things that rank like high priority, but have flexibility. So going out to eat, purchasing groceries, kind of those things that it's like, I got to eat, I got to clothe myself, but how much I spend is flexible, okay? And then you take a third color, and that third color is, this is 100% discretionary money. This is the fun stuff. And I think, Holly, that's the simplest way. If you do that, even every 90 days, you print your 3 months of bank statements and you do this, you're going to, like you're saying, your eyes are going to be open like, oh my Lanta, I spent $100 on apps this month that I didn't even use.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Amazon's going to be a tough one because you're going to have to be like, well, was it the paper towel or was
Right.
it that doohickey that just popped up and I was like, I got to have that.
Yes, exactly. Maybe you get 2 separate bank cards on
Right.
Amazon. One is for the paper towel and one's for the doohickey.
I like it. Yeah. I mean, we do have to take some responsibility here. Like, there's only so much you can do. And I know you're a rock star and you're going to get someone to the finish line, but we have to take responsibility too. And I think that's something that is that factor that people don't want to know or want to hear, but they need to hear it. As the professional, they need you for that. They may be like me. I'm not married. I don't have a boss. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. And I always joke when I just got my taxes done the other day and we're going to set me up as an S Corp because I should have been all along, but I didn't do it yet. And I looked at him and I said, Mike, nobody's the boss of me. You've got to tell me what to do. And he started laughing. I'm like, somebody's got to do it. And he's like, well, I'm going to tell you what to do. You just said what you needed to do. And that's what we need to do. I'm like, well, do it, man. I'm trusting you.
You're creating like a system and a structure, which I think, we always have these reward systems for kids, right? The star chart that you do X, Y, and Z, you get this. But it's like, we also as adults benefit from that. Like, if you love getting a massage, you should set up a plan like, hey, if I do my money and at the end I come out green, right? I'm where I need to be on my numbers for the month. And I've got like this slush fund with extra, then I'm going to reward myself by going and doing a spa day. Like, you got to live your life. But I think in the context of your life, having systems and a structure and a mentor, a financial professional, right? But somebody who's like showing you the way, like, hey, come up higher. This is the way. If we do this, it's going to get you where you want to go. I think that those things are a game changer for people's personal finance, for sure.
Kayla, this has been amazing. I'm just like I said, I'm going to go back through and take some notes, and you and I are going to be talking a lot more on this because I'm excited to get going in all of this and get my plan together. I'm going to do exactly what we're telling everyone else to do. Thanks again so much for joining me and really just sharing your wisdom and your experience in the financial arena.
Thank you for having me. It was an honor, and I truly feel blessed to have been on the call.
Well, it's a blessing and I believe it's going to help so many other people who didn't realize how important it is, or they just needed that assistance to get themselves set up for their future. Please let everyone know how they can reach you so they can have some offline conversations.
Awesome. Yeah. So if you're looking to have conversations, there's absolutely no charge for a call or an appointment. I would love to be able to meet with you and kind of go through your unique situation. The best way to contact me is going to be by email. Holly, I know she's going to leave that in the notes, but it's my last name, ajiniteamandassociates@gmail.com. For the spelling, you can check out the notes there. And then the second probably best way would be by reaching me on my cell phone. So my phone number is 248-219-23. And that's my personal line. So if you reach me on a weekend, you'll hear from me on Monday. But I would look forward to either doing a Zoom call, or if you are local, I'm glad to meet with you for a coffee. And it would be my honor to kind of help you identify where you want to be headed. So
I love that. And yes, everything's going to be down in the notes, and you'll be able to get in contact with Kayla, join her on social, start those conversations. And we really want to thank all of you for joining us today. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel, like our episode, of course, and tap that bell for notifications so that you'll be the first to know when the next episode of the Onward and Upward podcast is posted. Everybody be blessed.